the storm with your heart. Play the storm with your heart.
At one time, man, it's crazy. An organization looked like it was very promising, but then all of a sudden, it's dysfunctional. You can't erase the stench from the previous organization, the previous ownership. You go 2 months, Brian. This organization was looking very promising. I'm talking about the Washington Commanders. It was looking very promising for these past 2 months. And then all of a sudden, this week, I think was it Wednesday or was it Tuesday? I forget what day it was. I think it was
I think it
Wednesday.
was Wednesday.
Wednesday. Wednesday rolls around and all of that changes. What am I talking about, ladies and gentlemen? I'm talking about Dan Quinn going to the Washington Commanders. This is Brian's celebration. Brian was absolutely celebrating at just the news that Dan Quinn was not going to be a part of the Cowboys. And the fact that he goes to the rival, he goes to that team, is probably, I already know it gives you even more joy that he went to the Washington Commanders and he's going to be the head coach.
Yep.
I just look at this situation and I say to myself, nothing has changed. They put all their eggs in one basket on one coach, and that is Ben Johnson. And he gave them the middle finger. They were going towards him. They were going to wherever he was.
Detroit.
They were going to Detroit. Mid-flight, he called them and said, "Hey, I'm not interested no more." Mid-flight, they were going to visit him. You know how cold that is? You know how embarrassing that is? That an offensive coordinator that's highly coveted decided, I'm going to stay in Detroit. Like, what? And they have the number 2 pick. They have the most cap space. And that OC decided, I'm going to stay where I'm at. I'm not going to go nowhere. That just speaks to the stench of the organization, to the franchise. Even though they've gotten rid of Dan Snyder, you can't erase all of the bad aura that came from that franchise these past 25 years. So, what is your reaction to the news?
This is a prime example of why reputation matters so much these days.
Mm.
Because the Commanders, they've been doing all this offseason, they've been doing the right things. They properly tanked for the number 2 pick. They got rid of the GM. They bought in a 49ers guy to be the GM. Over the past year, they changed ownership. Wants to got some guys in the building that wants to put the franchise in the right direction. And still, Ben Johnson allegedly, of course, I think Schefter reported this. He said he wants to win a Super Bowl. That's why he's staying in Detroit.
Mm-hmm.
And Detroit hasn't won anything.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the exact reason why reputation matters so much in this league, because even though you're doing the right things, people will still remember you from when you was messing up, or when you squandered, or when the people before you came and ruined the brand. So this is why reputation is so important. And the fact that it seemed like the Commanders didn't have any backup plans as far as coach. Like, all we've been hearing was Ben Johnson, Ben Johnson. I haven't really heard many other candidates tied to the Washington job, but until like the very end, where it was like, oh yeah, Dan Quinn. I'm like, it
Aaron
sounds like a
Glenn, Weaver,
yeah, Aaron Glenn. I heard a little bit
Anthony
of
Weaver.
Mike McDonald, but I was like,
Me
that doesn't
too.
even make sense.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it was pretty interesting, pretty interesting. Um, yeah, I love it though. Please, so now we have our former OC coaching for the Eagles, and now we got our former DC head coaching for the Commanders. You cannot write a script better than this, I'll tell you that. So
Believe that.
now,
Mm-hmm.
and so now, I think they're bringing Joe Witt to be their defensive coordinator. He was like a linebacker or passing. He did something. I forgot what he did with us, but Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
man. Good luck. Then now they don't know who's going to be the OC. They not. I've been here. They're not fully committed on being to me. So good luck, Commanders fans. Good luck. Because I'm telling you now, you look at Dan Quinn's record as a head coach and Ron Rivera, it's looking pretty similar if you ask me. And one
Yeah.
of those, and you don't want to look at the record for Dan Quinn without Kyle Shanahan.
Oh my God.
You don't
Good
want to
Lord.
see that.
Good Lord have mercy. It's bad. It's really bad. Um, I've been hearing Chip Kelly
Oh
potentially
goodness.
being the OC, maybe interviewing him. That would be a disaster. Here, man, I was talking to my cousin, and this was like a week and a half ago, and we were discussing, yo, if you were gonna bandwagon to a organization, to a franchise, and not be shamed, the Commanders would probably be at the top of the list because they look like they look like they have a bright future. Well, this past Wednesday, that went out the window because hiring Dan Quinn, that's probably the last candidate they probably thought of going to, and this is just a colossal disaster. They're pretty much bringing in Ron Rivera 2.0. Maybe he's a better motivator, a better speaker of men, but for the most part, he doesn't know anything about offense. His defense, since he left Seattle as the DC, it hasn't been that great. I mean, it's been very inconsistent with Atlanta. They didn't play defense. That was all Kyle Shanahan and that offense. So what is he really good at? Like, if you can't get the defense to play well,
He
then
is
what are
good.
well?
He is a good con man. I'll tell you that much. And not in the literal sense, but in the sense that he'll make your defense look like it's like elite. But when you go against these elite teams, it's like, oh, like I'm sure the Commanders defense will probably look solid against like the Giants or the maybe even the Eagles. But once they play a team like probably the Cowboys, it's gonna be the same thing, different toilet.
Hmm.
So yeah, his defense is so predicated on dudes just being like, we're just better than you, right? We're going to go out there and we're just going to play better than you, and that doesn't work against teams like the coaches from the Shanahan tree and stuff like that. Because as you see, his record against the Shanahan tree is god awful as when he was on the Cowboys. So yeah,
Mm,
I'm just that is such a that move single handedly might have pushed the Commanders like rebuild back by almost 5 years. Like no
mm,
troll. Like that
mm.
moves that Ben Johnson backing out may have delayed their rise to the where they want to
Yeah,
be by 5 years at
a-
least. Because
absolutely.
you're gonna have to go through Dan Quinn and he's gonna have his guys come in. And let's
Mm,
say it's a 3 year project and it doesn't work. I doubt they fire him the first 2 years. That just sounds
mm-mm,
crazy.
mm-mm.
So then you're going to have his guys on the roster like that he likes to draft. Then you're going to have to bring in a new coach, and then he's going to have to bring his guys that he won over as far as the coaching staff and players he likes to draft and free agency and all that. And yeah, man, good luck. Good luck trying to spend all that cap space to re-sign these free agents or even acquire free agents. Because I'm looking. If I'm a player, I'm looking at this situation. I'm like, they can't even get a coach to commit. Why would I go play for them?
Honestly, you're absolutely right about that. I'm looking at the situation. I'm just wondering, like, why would you put all your eggs in one basket towards a guy that when they talked about him possibly going to the
You
Panthers,
know what's funny? He did this last year though.
he did, Ben Johnson?
Yes.
I didn't know
He
that. I
literally
didn't know he was a
he
candidate.
was getting like head coach buzz and then he like backed out. Like he
Mm,
had interviews and everything. He was like, I'm not gonna stay in Detroit. Like this
I
is the
didn't know
second
that.
year he's done that.
And see, the thing that had me alarmed was remember that report where they talked about, oh, Ben Johnson possibly going to the Panthers and him demanding 15 million a year. That was an eye scratcher right there. And I was just they should have known like after that report because they tried to debunk it. Like, did Ben Johnson camp try to debunk it? Like, he's not asked for that. But well, just looking at what I've heard ever since the whole situation came down, like some of these organizations were turned off by just some of his demands because he's probably demanding a lot. And I don't know, maybe that report was absolutely right, or maybe part of it was right. And I guess certain, the Seahawks and the Commanders weren't going to give him everything that he wanted, and he probably backed out and said, "All right, I'm gonna just wait until next year, and if we win this Super Bowl, the teams are gonna, they're gonna bring out the Brinch trucks, and they're gonna give me whatever I want and stuff like that." And so they should have known from those reports that Ben Johnson, he's a bit, he's a bit skeptical, and they should have like put a lot of their resources and attention to a guy like Mike McDonald, who's well respected, who will bring in, I believe, a good coaching staff along with himself. And especially when you go, you from the Ravens tree, they got some dudes, they got some coaches there that you could probably bring in and you could probably win. He understands winning culture, he understands what it looks like and stuff like that. He's been around Lamar Jackson, so he understands what a great quarterback looks like. And the fact that they interviewed him like twice, but they should have done a lot more in trying
Due
to
diligence.
convince Mike McDonald, tried to convince some of these other coaches, like Dave Canales, man. Like Dave Canales was on the market, and they didn't try to get him. They didn't try to go after him. That would have been another good candidate for them. But the fact that
Especially
they
when you
didn't
bring
do
a new
that,
QB in the draft, like it would have
yeah,
made sense. So
yeah, a young, bright-minded coach alongside with the quarterback that's coming in, that would have been a fantastic hire. But they decided not to put all the resource, not all the resources, put a lot of attention into Dave Canales, and so that's very disappointing. And they fumbled this. They really did. I thought that the new ownership, I thought, you bring in Bob Myers, you bring in Magic Johnson as a part-time owner, you bring in all this stuff, and yet again nothing has changed. It's still the same old dysfunction, not knowing what to do, not taking it upon yourself to put your team in the best position possible. And I just feel like they're just stuck in the same sort of endless cycle of being mediocre to bad. And when you draft your quarterback, Drake May, I don't like the situation for Drake May. Let's say they get Caleb Williams. I don't like this situation for Caleb Williams either because I don't trust Dan Quinn. I don't trust Dan Quinn's coaching staff. I don't trust Dan Quinn when it comes to coaching his team. And that's the problem. At the end of the day, I will say this, at the end of the day, when you hire a head coach, you obviously want a head coach that knows what he's doing, knows what he's talking about. But it's also important to understand where is this coach coming from and also who is he bringing in, right? So for a great example would be D'Amico Ryans coming from the 49ers. Who does he bring in? Bobby Slowick, a guy
mhm.
from the Shanahan tree who understands the offense, understands the new age of quarterbacks. And guess what? CJ Stroud, one of the best rookie seasons of a quarterback we've ever seen. Stuff like that is why it's very important. You can bring in a defensive coach, but make sure you understand what tree did he come from. Where was he from beforehand? And see, they went Dallas Cowboys, and that's going to screw them over. That's going to mess them up at the end because Dan Quinn is just not it. He's just not it. And that's the simple fact.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just
And,
a
and
just. I think also I think the org kind of felt like they had more leverage or importance than they actually did. So they probably thought, well, yeah, of course Ben Johnson want to coach for us. Look at the position. We got this. And it's just like that's not the case.
mm-hmm.
So
They,
hey,
yeah. They thought that we brought in somebody from the 49ers tree as the GM. Oh, we're new ownership. We brought in Magic Johnson, we brought in Bob Myers, so it looks good and
we got
stuff. So
a number two pick. So yeah.
we got cap space.
Hmm.
So people will definitely want to come here. It's not that simple. It is not that simple. Like new ownership, you can be delusional. You can be new ownership doesn't necessarily mean that, oh, this is going to be a bright new future. I'm looking as a player, as a coach, you're looking at new ownership. Like, do they know what they're doing? Do they understand the politics, just everything that comes with being an NFL franchise? And with this news, it's just I don't feel
I mean,
confident.
are we really surprised? He owns the 76ers, correct?
Mm-hmm.
He hired Doc Rivers. I mean,
Oh, okay.
are we really surprised?
Cold world, still a cold world. And a couple of y'all is cool, but we a little more thorough. Whole time, a little more girls. You know I spit that sick shit and it's still no cure. Hola, loud packs like I got